One of the inevitable questions I always get is what tools do you use? Which usually gets the answer practice and patience, because that's basically the main tools you'll need to master to carve anything. But for amber especially, patience is a virtue. Yeah, this is my main tool I'm using today to do the teeth. It's a packet, I'll show you. A masonry nail, so it's incredibly hard. Nice little bit of steel, dirt cheap, 90p. So yeah, that's the basic. You grind it into any shape you want. This one is a little needle point that I use for doing the teeth. As you can see, I've got a whole selection of various shapes and points. They're all made in the same way, just a little wooden handle or a little bone handle. Just jam a steel point in it, grind it to shape, and if it doesn't do what you ask it to do, make it a different shape and make a new one. It's a case of making the tools to do the job. So but this one is perfect for riddling in between teeth, getting them nice tight little lines between the gaps that we're looking for. Skulls are a funny thing. Your layman doesn't really know the shape of a skull. You can get away with any number of sins in the anatomy of the skull, but if you don't get them teeth right, people will spot that. Because we see teeth in everybody, don't we? We smile and we clean our teeth, we know what they look like, but the rest of the skull is pretty much a mystery to most people. So we usually spend as much time in the teeth as we do in the rest of the skull, because that's the bit that will make or break it. Quite literally in amber, it's not difficult to shear a lump off this. If you're too hard with your tool or put too much pressure in at the right angle, you can soon chip a flake off it that you can't put back on. So it's definitely a game of patience. That's why I don't do many of these, and when I do, they're not cheap. Just adding some contours to the skull now. So I'm using a slightly different shaped tool. It's got an oval flat cut end on this one, so it's a point that way, but it's actually oval on its flat surface, so it's good for making a nice even dent in material, which is perfect for skulls because you've got a lot of hollows on a skull. I'm literally just brushing away the tiniest amount each time. You can see that's like barely even dust coming off it. It's a micro process, but it makes all the difference with a skull. Get the contours in, you've got a skull with character then. I don't want to see skulls at Leicester. A ball with 2 holes for eyes and step ladders for teeth. It's got to be skull shaped for me, I'm afraid. Again, that's just oval end on that one. No right on the side of them what shape they are. So even when I've got the visor down, I can look on the desk and see what tool I've got without having to keep trying to find out what I'm looking at. It just keeps the job flowing. When you're working with amber, it's this material that's already 50 million years old, so wrecking it is never an option. You've got to tread very carefully and mean every step, because if you wreck it, that's an awful shame. I see working with any sort of stone as the same mindset with that, really. You've got to really mean it. Take your time and be nice to it, basically. I was taught a lot by Benzart Davis. He was one of the greatest carvers I think that's ever lived. And he set me up carving jade, and that got me into crystal carving and eventually the flint work that I do and that sort of stuff. But he said to me once, if you're going to mess with the bones of the earth, you better bloody well mean it. And I think he was right. If you're going to start changing the shape of stuff that's always been there, that's not something you should do mindlessly or just for the sake of it. Another thing is, if you can't add to what nature's already done, leave it alone. Quite a lot of the time with amber, I'll find a piece that's so nice, no amount of carving in the world can improve it, so I don't mess with it. This was a lovely stone, but it had no inclusions or internal characteristics. It's just a nice clear stone, so it lent itself well to being carved. But if I'm looking at something that's got internal character to it, messing around with the outside shape doesn't actually do a lot, for me anyway. As you can see, it's quite a pleasant little task to get lost in. It's just gentle persuasion with amber, no force, no pressure. Just keeping an eye on what you're doing and doing it carefully is the key. There's an old Native American saying about hunting: look much, move little. And I think that definitely counts with this as well. Planning each step carefully and making sure you've executed it properly before you move on to the next bit. Rushing it is not an option. So yeah, he's starting to look more skull shaped now. A bit more work to do on the contours, and it's all about the brushing and the polishing. So, but he should be nice and clear when he's done. He'll be a proper clear piece of amber. I've left just a little bit on the top of his head there, which is the old scar from when he was in the sea. I mean, I could polish that out, but there's no need to. I quite like it to have some sort of provenance. Proves it's real amber and not chunky yellow plastic. So yeah, I'll probably leave that as it is. That'll be about where the string will come out anyway, so it's not going to be a massive problem in the overall finish. And also it's a slight indentation, so if I'd levelled it off and made it perfect, it'd be a lot smaller skull. So sometimes it's better to leave a little inclusion like that rather than take away all your material, try to make it perfect to begin with. It's better off to be anatomical with a slight hole or a dent. I get a lot with the antlers. So you're working with a piece of antler, some of these channels can run really deep, and quite often when I make a skull, he'll have a scar on the top of his head and or a hole or a little brown spot where the antler was naturally grown. But to be honest, 90% of the skulls I look at in real life have got similar sort of dents, holes, scratches and scars, so you don't need to panic about perfection with a skull. It's a natural object. They come in all shapes and sizes, so nothing's wrong. We got the contours and the details there now. Just a little more brushing with the gravers and we'll start the polish. Starting to clarify now, he's getting a bit of a shine on him. I'm just using very fine wire wool to get all the scratches out and get him shiny. As you can imagine, if you use sandpaper or anything too abrasive, one wipe and you've lost half the face, so it's quite a gentle process now. Some fella on Facebook the other day tried to give me advice on polishing amber. He said, oh, you don't need to do any of that, just use a soft cloth. Cheers. When I want help, I generally ask for it, but he meant well, but he obviously doesn't polish a lot of amber. That's all I can say. A little bit of brass though, it's good stuff on amber, it really does polish it up nicely. I don't know why, I don't know what the chemistry or the science of that is, but it does seem to work. Old boy in an antique shop told me that years ago. Now, a wiser man might have drilled the hole in this before he finished it, but we'll take a gamble. Amber is notoriously difficult stuff to drill. Get halfway through and you suddenly see a great big crack open up. You wish you hadn't bothered, but he's coming along. But I think I will stop there and drill the hole for the cord next, because it's a couple of days wasted if I ruin it at this point. So yeah, I'll go for that. And then I've got to polish the inside of the hole, which is very tricky, but it can be done. Because otherwise you get a big white tunnel through a piece of amber. So we will have to polish the insides of the channel before I pull the cord through. Well, he survived the drilling, so that's the main thing I was worried about. I've drilled a V-shaped hole in there. So the string will go in one and out the other, somewhat like the old Japanese netsu carvings. They were drilled in a similar fashion. Just makes a neater job of it. If you go straight through, it just always looks a bit half-arsed, I'm afraid. So Try and do it the traditional way. I didn't show you how I did that because, well, there's some things I don't share. I say, drilling amber is very tricky, and when you find a way to do it, keep it to yourself, or everyone will be doing it. And there we go, that's polished and complete. Got a neat little skull, nice piece of amber. Pleasure to carve that one. So now all I've got to do is weave up a cord and make the necklace part. Right, I've got a little carved bone toggle. I wound a 6-cord black rope onto that. Just got to see if I can get it through the hoodle now. So, hopefully this will fit without too much resistance. Gently, gently. There we go. So that runs through the skull quite neatly. Right, that's the toggle knot done. Faster. Hook him on there, make sure it's level. Get in there, you bugger. There. There we go, call that one done. One 50-million-year-old piece of Baltic amber, now carved into the skull. So. Cheers for watching, hope you enjoyed that, and pop that up on the website, and somebody might want it. Cool, alright, see you later.